Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Preacher Boys podcast. My name is Eric Skwarczynski, and I grew up within the independent fundamental Baptist movement. And as a former fundamentalist, I shed light on the dark side of the church from the pulpit to the pew. Last week, I broke down 3 stories relating to scandals in Baptist churches that took place between July 1st and July 7th, 2025. And today, I'm diving deep into 4 headlines that broke between July 8th and July 15th, 2025. I do want to make a note here that some of these stories refer to charges for possession or distribution of child pornography. I personally prefer to use the term child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, as it more accurately reflects the abusive and exploitative nature of this content. However, I still will occasionally use the term child pornography in this video when referencing specific legal terminology like a charge, or I'm specifically quoting other sources in order to maintain accuracy and context. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's go ahead and move into the rest of the video. On July 10th, 2025, a pastoral care resident was arrested for distributing child sexual abuse material. Garrett English graduated from Clemson University with a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and Police Science in 2022. He took the next year and worked full-time as a preschool teacher for Little Lights Learning Center in Clemson, South Carolina. And in 2024, he returned to college, this time attending Liberty University to study church planning, while simultaneously interning at Heartfire Missions. Finally, in August of 2024, English became a pastoral care resident at Harris Creek Baptist Church in Waco, Texas.
Romans 3:23. It says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God."
On July 10th, 2025, he was booked into the McLennan County Jail on 2 counts of possession of child pornography with intent to promote. This is a 3rd-degree felony in the state of Texas and can carry a penalty of 2 to 10 years in prison and a maximum $10,000 fine. KWTX reports detectives learned someone had uploaded child pornography files on the social media platform Kik and then shared those files with other users via direct messages, according to the affidavit. The suspect's internet protocol addresses were identified by detectives, and with the help of Verizon Wireless, the IP addresses were traced back to English, the affidavit further alleges. English uploaded the child porn files on November 8th, 2024, and on December 14th, 2024. John Elmore, with the pastoral care and teaching team at Harris Creek Baptist Church, confirmed to KWTX that English was a part-time church employee from South Carolina who was part of a 9-month residency program to learn about Christian ministry. According to Elmore, the criminal investigation began after English's residency program ended in May of 2025, and he had returned to South Carolina. I do want to give a special mention to Amy Smith, who runs the site watchkeep.org, for initially bringing this story to my attention through a Facebook post, and I dug in a little bit deeper from there. But if you aren't following Amy Smith, her reporting is incredible, and I highly encourage you to check out watchkeep.org, just as an aside here to the overall story. On July 13th, 2025, LGBTQ plus protesters rallied outside Sure Foundation Baptist Church in Indianapolis. The church garnered media attention after 2 men from the congregation, Stephen Falco and Wade Raleigh, preached sermons urging LGBTQ plus people to commit suicide and calling for the government to beat the LGBTQ plus community and, quote, blow the backs of their heads off, end quote. You can see the original coverage of those sermons as well as a portion of my interview with Wish TV here on this channel. I've linked to it in the show notes. You're just seeing it get worse and worse and worse. And like I said, I don't know which one's scarier, the people that say it or the people who internalize it and feel that way, but you wouldn't know it, because they don't say it publicly.
That's Eric Skwarczynski. He grew up in a fundamental church and now investigates abuse and extremist behavior in churches like this with the Preacher Boys podcast.
After seeing the coverage of the church, an Indianapolis local named Cass Jackson decided to organize a protest with the support of the 5051 movement. The day of the protest, Justin Zong preached a sermon titled Love Thy Neighbor, in which he doubled down on his remarks.
How do I love my neighbor? By wishing the government will be putting the homos to death, by praying for their destruction, and by believing the whole Bible. Those people try, to make it sound like that we are calling for the innocent to be put to death. But the thing is, being a homo is a crime. It's a crime against humanity. If our nation follows God's law, then no homos will be anyone's neighbor. Amen.
Zong gestured to the protesters outside while he continued, saying,
"In fact, I hope those police officers will just arrest those homos and try them and put them to death." Wasn't, sodomy used to be illegal in like 17 states?
Amen.
Let's put the law of God back in the courthouses.
After the Sunday morning service, an Indianapolis reporter, Jade Jackson, captured video showing congregants mocking protesters. You can see that footage over at her Twitter with the handle I am Jade Jackson. On July 15th, 2025, a youth pastor and his wife were indicted on 47 charges. I first posted about Pastor John Radcliff II and his wife, Kathy Jean Radcliff, on November 26, 2024. At the time, John was facing 175 sexual assault and abuse charges, as well as 1 count of displaying obscene material to a minor. Kathy faced 1 count of displaying obscene material to a minor and 1 count of principal. Well, on July 15th, 2025, both John Radcliff II and Kathy Jean Radcliff were indicted on charges involving 6 victims. John faces 47 charges and Kathy faces 1. WDTV reports John Radcliff II, 58, of Nettie, has been indicted for sexually abusing multiple young girls when they were just 3 and 4 years old until they were around 12 years old, many of whom are his nieces. Radcliff is accused of making the girls, who are now adults, perform sexual acts on him and sexually assaulting them in other ways throughout their childhoods. Here's the current breakdown of the charges. Victim number 1, 3 counts of sexual abuse by a parent, guardian, or custodian, 2 counts of first-degree sexual abuse, 1 count of first-degree sexual assault, and 1 count of incest. Victim number 2, 5 counts of sexual abuse by a parent, guardian, or custodian, 3 counts of first-degree sexual assault, 3 counts of incest, 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse. Victim number 3, 1 count of sexual abuse by a parent, guardian, or custodian, 1 count of first-degree sexual assault, 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse, and 1 count of incest. Victim number 4, 1 count of sexual abuse by a parent, guardian, or custodian, 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse. Victim number 5, 5 counts of sexual abuse by a parent, guardian, or custodian, 5 counts of first-degree sexual assault, 5 counts of first-degree sexual abuse, and 5 counts of incest. And finally, victim number 6, where there are 2 counts of first-degree sexual abuse. One of the most disturbing aspects revealed in this already disturbing story is the reason for Kathy Radcliff's original charge of displaying obscene matter to a minor. Allegedly, she had 2 victims come into her and John's bedroom and watch a pornographic film with them, while John and Kathy performed sexual acts on one another. However, WDTV reports, Kathy's only been indicted on 1 count of principal in the 2nd degree, or accessory, as multiple victims told police she was aware of everything that happened to them at all times. My final story comes from First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana. Pastor Tim Ruhl was a featured speaker during the first night of youth conference at First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, which took place on July 15th, 2025. Ruhl has a controversial history in ministry. While pastoring at his former church, Pleasant Valley Baptist, a lawsuit was brought forward for a 2002 incident where then-teacher and associate pastor David Jorgensen committed lewd acts on a female student when she was 14 years old. In 2010, the Courthouse News reported, Pleasant Valley Baptist Church pastor Tim Ruhl covered for another pastor, David Jorgensen, who was convicted of sexual offenses with a girl, and Ruhl accused her of being impure and booted her from the church school 6 months before high school graduation, she claims in Butte County Court. In February 2011, another associate pastor from his church, who also happened to be his son, Jesse Ruhl, was charged with misdemeanor child molestation. The allegations involved a 16-year-old girl, and the charges were brought after Ruhl confessed to inappropriate physical contact. Specifically, Jesse admitted to touching the minor's breasts and bottom between 5 and 10 times, including instances involving skin-to-skin contact. In spite of this, in 2019, Tim Ruhl allowed his son Jesse to visit his camp ministry, Mount Zion Baptist Camp, which hosts minor campers during the summer season. And on June 26, 2019, Tim Ruhl preached a sermon at Lancaster Baptist Church in Lancaster, California, titled, How Good Are You at Forgiving? He said, in part,
See, sometimes we can forgive.
Don't let it go. They're no good. They don't mean anything anyway. We can forgive those little ones. But how about the big ones? How about when someone manipulates you? How about someone robs your home? You lay in bed, you realize you've been violated. How about molestation? How about adultery? How about rape? So how do you forgive those?
In light of all this, my burning question is, why did Pastor John Wilkerson and the rest of the leadership at First Baptist Church of Hammond think Tim Ruhl was an ideal speaker to bring to their youth conference? Well, there's 4 headlines relating to scandal in Baptist churches from the past week. If there's any stories that you think I should have covered or need to cover in a future episode, be sure to drop a comment on this episode and let me know. And wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update from the Preacher Boys podcast. I'm dropping weekly episodes containing interviews with survivors and experts, as well as doing some solo episodes like this one, keeping you up to date on stories you should know about. But for now, that's it for today's episode. I'll see you on the next one.